What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 15 of Nintendo Noise, Flip Screen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined, as always, by my very good friend, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello.
And the mayor of Haken himself, Mr. Chuy Huerta.
Hey, how's it going?
It is good, we're here, and you know what? I'm not going to bury the lead here. We're here to celebrate a very special birthday. The Nintendo Wii, to date, still, Nintendo's most successful home console. I think a time that, at least for me, very nostalgic. Whether or not it was always a good time as a Nintendo fan is another thing that we'll talk all about. But because of that special anniversary, and it feels like there's been a lot of very special anniversaries lately, but we couldn't let this one stop without a conversation. So we're going to be getting all into that in our main topic today. But before that, let me just tell you where you can find us here on Nintendo Noise all across the web. But even before I do that, I'm going to remind you that this episode is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of November. Those beautiful folks are, of course, Andy Radford, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you guys so much for your support over there on that there Patreon. Y'all are the best. We love you. And speaking of, even if you're not one of those folks, there's a lot of cool stuff you can get over on the Patreon, right? You got access to one more thing, our extra podcast, which is just for patrons. And normally I would say it's the show where we talk about what's going on in our lives. It's kind of like, we just get on and bullshit. But this week, Steve and I, he threw me for a loop. We get there, we just talked about video games just for a whole hour. Oops, extra episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast. So you go check that out, see what you think about it, if you like it. If, you want to get more of that, let us know, and we can always do that too, I guess. So there's a very, very special episode of One More Thing for you this week. But, of course, there's a bunch of other cool perks you can get, like getting access to the archives of our Twitch streams every Thursday, twitch.tv/flipscreengames. The crew gets together and plays a game together. Ooh, excuse me. We get together and play games together. The last couple weeks we played Mario Party. I think this week we were supposed to do kind of a tiebreaker, Steve and I right now, we're 1-for-1 game. Chuy didn't show up last week. Don't know what that's about. Maybe he's scared. Maybe he's trying to come in for the upset on episode 3. Who's to say? Steve's nodding along like he thinks he agrees. I don't know. Chuy might have to defend himself on that one.
I won the bubbly bet, so I'm happy about that.
You're up right now. I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
You're up right now, But hey, the mighty fall, as evidenced by my devastating loss last week, right? So,
I keep getting called a criminal by everyone in the community, and I'm very saddened by that. And by say everyone in the community, the people that voted for Pete.
Well, that's because they have taste and they know what's going on, But anyway, round 3, we were supposed to do that this week, but of course, Xbox, them having an anniversary today too, 20 years of Xbox, congratulations. They did a little ditty and threw out Halo multiplayer a few days early. Which has us very excited. So, of course, this Thursday, we're going to have to be streaming some Halo. So, Mario Party, either the tiebreaker or Chuy coming in for the upset with a fucking Cinderella story on episode 3 is going to be next week instead. So, you're not going to want to miss any of that stuff. Like I said, every Thursday evening, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. But if you can't go catch those live, Patreon's a great way for you to catch those VODs and still get to check out that content because I'll tell you what, those Mario Party streams, at the very least, well worth your time. They have been hilarious, and I've been having so much fun on them. Everybody in the community's been having a good time checking them out and betting away their hard-earned channel points to see which one of us are going to win. So go check that stuff out. It's been a blast, and we hope you'll come be a part of it. If you want to get links to everywhere else you can find us on the web, the easiest way is to just head over to flipscreen.games. Of course, that's our website where we've got links to our Twitter, our Discord. You can send us an email, questions@flipscreen.games. All of those are a great way to get in touch with us, get your thoughts read on the air, but also to keep the conversation rolling after the podcast. Every week on the Discord, we have a special thread for every episode where we get together and kind of let everybody gets to react and, send in new questions. And it's a great way to get involved with the community and, spend a little bit more time chatting about video games with us. So please come be a part of it. Come check it out. It's a good, safe, fun, inclusive community for you to come chat about games. So we'd love to have you there. So before we get into talking about Wii's 15th birthday and what that means, right? Almost that Sweet 16, almost ready to go drive a car and all that stuff. Not quite yet. We have a little follow-up from our conversation about Animal Crossing that we had last week on the show. And I loved this comment. Thought it was a great comment. This one's over from the YouTube channel. Speaking of which, I know we've missed a couple comments over there. We're going to get better about reading those YouTube comments, so keep them coming. Thank you very much for writing in. This one comes from Brianne, who wrote in on that episode and said, "What I really miss about animal dialogue is they rarely ever mention each other. They say, 'Oh, I have a friend that once did this or that,' instead of saying the name of someone on the actual island. I want gossip and rumors. It really takes away from the immersion and sense of community in your town. I think we have way too much power, and I think they're leaning way too much on player convenience and self-expression. For the next game, they need to have a balance of pleasing both kinds of people. The ones who love self-expression and convenience, and those who love role-playing, player immersion, and taking it slow. A game needs balance in order to please the most amount of players, and they really need more multiplayer activities like in New Leaf. You can't even visit each other's Harv's Island or go on boats together with Cap'n, let alone no minigame islands."
Yeah, I was really disappointed when I learned about the Harv's Island restriction because I was saying to Macaulay, "Oh, I've got carrots today. Why don't you come over and pick up some carrots from Leaf?" And I was just like, "Oh, we can't go there together. That kind of sucks."
Yeah.
Regarding like the split though, the immersion and the sim, like you want your own like expression and stuff. I kind of feel like they've got that split now with Happy Home Paradise. It's like if you want to go and you want to just be able to express yourself in like a sandbox environment, you can go do that over there. And I also feel like the main game had levels of expression that we've never had anyway, with all of the crafting and the DIY stuff and being able to put things outside and terraforming, all of that stuff. So, I feel like there's a lot more customization, but I can't argue with the multiplayer stuff. There definitely should be some more things that we can do.
I feel like that's what Brand's getting at, though, right? Is like that idea that we've leaned so far on the customization and the self-expression and all that we've lost some of what was core to Animal Crossing, I think.
Yeah, and I think overall that's like a shift that I have noticed has been happening like throughout the series. Like I think New Leaf was a big step in that direction where they were like, "Oh, you're the mayor now and you have all this control over like what's being built and everything." And just like slowly over time it's been becoming that. And I mean, I always tell people about like the good old days of Animal Crossing on the GameCube when you literally could do nothing.
Yeah. You just had no power.
Yeah, you had no power whatsoever. Visitors, you'd get like one a month maybe if you were lucky. So yeah, there was so much stuff you couldn't control in those games, and that like I feel like that's kind of where the trade-off is with dialogue, where it's like in this game New Horizons where you have the freedom to move your villagers anywhere, like would you rather they complain about it or just like, "Yeah, that sounds about right, cool, move my house"? Because otherwise like they could respond like, "No, my children just started at school here. What are you why are you going to move me?" Like I feel like the movement of the dialogue toward kind of like that kinder villagers all just to really fit that control that you have as a player. And so I don't know if we'll get that back if they keep going along these lines, but I kind of doubt it.
It just bums me out because like I don't feel like it needs to be one or the other. Like I appreciate the level of convenience and control that is provided in New Horizons. Like I think that those are quality of life changes that are good. I think that they're things that make the game more accessible and allow like a wider range of players to engage with it and get something out of it. Those are all good changes, but like does that mean we need to remove so much of the personality of the villagers? And I guess maybe that there's less resources and time for those features, but I think that's really a shame.
I feel like a lot of it's coming back though. Like on my island, I recently had one of them come up to me to complain that they just had a fight with another one of the villagers and specifically mentioned them by name. It wasn't like, "Oh, here's one from a friend." It was Joey said something and it really made me upset and mad. and they were just stomping around the place with the
Yeah.
the scruffle above their heads, and I was
Yeah.
just like, I liked it. I thought it was fun, and I've had people give me gifts for specific villages. It's like, oh, I bought this for Daisy, and I haven't had a chance to go take it to her. Can you take it
Good.
over?
I'm
And
glad.
I was just like, yeah,
I
Hmm.
miss
sure,
that
I
stuff.
can do
That
that.
was like the whole game before. Was like
Yeah.
go and talk to everybody and run a couple errands for them and try to make some money or get some items and then oh cool, like it's been an hour or two. Why don't I go back and talk to everybody again and see if anybody has anything else to say to me, and like you could get a lot of out of that. Whereas now I feel like you talk to the villagers a couple times and they're like, didn't we just talk? We've been talking all day. And it's like, okay, geez, I thought we were friends. Like, you want to hang out? Fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as like villagers talking to you about other villagers, they do seem like it's restricted to a couple different things. Like what you described, Steve, it makes me think that you had two villagers having a conversation with each other. If you don't hop into that conversation, you see whatever happens next. Like there's pretty interesting dialogue for those conversations when they're talking to each other. But if you just like wait it out, sometimes one of them comes out of that like really angry and then or sad or just like feeling some sort of emotion, and then you can talk to them and figure out like what's going on, you know?
Oh, that's so
So
funny.
yeah, so that's like how you get those. But yeah, they tend to be like kind of restricted to that. The only other times I've heard them mention other villagers is like when you talk to them next to somebody else's house where they're like, "Oh, have you ever been to this person's house? It smells like ramen in there all the time." Or they'll make
Hmm.
some like little comment about their place. And yeah, outside of that, I can't think of too many others.
It would be cool if it was like talking about bringing the roost into it. Maybe like, oh, I had a coffee with such and such at the roost, or I saw someone
Yeah.
there,
Hmm.
or like at the Nook's Cranny. There's all sorts of things they could do. Or oh, I'm becoming really good friends with such and such. I'd love if I could move closer to them and kind of give hints as to what they would like and what they would
Yeah.
enjoy. I think stuff like that could kind of take it to the next level, especially now you've got the ability to redecorate their houses. If
Hmm.
they could come to you and say, oh, I don't really like the way my decor looks now, and do that kind of thing that they do in Happy Home Paradise, where it's like, I wish it was like an arcade room, or I wish it was like
Mm.
a beach getaway, and then you could design it to how they want it, but on your island, and maybe that changes on a seasonal basis. I think that could really bring both some of the expression stuff in, and also that level of simulation, which I think people are looking for.
I also
Yeah.
feel like to build on that, something that I would take a trade would be maybe we just have less villagers, but make their personalities more distinct. Because that's something that, like, I love how many villagers we have now and that, like, they've continued to build on them. And, like, we've really tried to, like, you made the point last week, Chuy, where now it's in this game, like, every character that's ever existed can be brought into the game in some way. That's really cool.
Hmm.
But I also feel like I would rather have, like, 30 villagers who all have unique personalities and be like, these are the 5 I really like, and they're going to live, or I forget how many people can live on your island. What is it, 8?
10.
10. So these are the
Yes.
10 I really like, so they're going to
Hmm.
be, and like, yeah, maybe there'd be less variance and it would be less of that, like, oh, let's go hunting and let's do this and that. And like, I know that there would be a lot of players who would be disappointed in that, I think, but I would
Hmm.
love if it was like, rather than, oh, they're a jock and all the jocks have the same dialogue basically and maybe there's a little variance here or there,
Yeah.
but like that's kind of their whole personality. And I feel like
Hmm.
maybe it's because I played Animal Crossing on GameCube when I was a kid, and like I have rose-colored glasses with it to some degree, but I feel like that was more true then. Like I feel like each character felt a little bit more, you know, I'm this character, not I'm this arc. I'm the first archetype like this,
Hmm. Yeah. And I have revisited the GameCube one again. You do still run into like a repetitive dialogue in that sense. Like it exists, but that game where it's unique, it's like as the series has progressed, it's definitely aimed at that, like, here's this just feel good, happy, pleasant place that you can be in that's like relaxing and everything. And so those abrasive personalities, like the cranky and snooties from those days, aren't quite so abrasive anymore. Just like it's toned down quite a bit to be
Yeah.
that. And to the extent that like I wouldn't describe the crankies as like cranky in this
Yeah.
game. I'd describe them as like, I don't know, old guy shouts at clouds sometimes.
Do you
I
know,
don't
I
know.
kind of
Just
feel
like
like they have that cranky moment for like one sentence or one paragraph, and then they do
mhm,
the whole "oh, I'm only joking, let's do exactly what you want" kind of thing. And
yeah.
sometimes I do kind of wish they would just stand their ground and be like, "No, I don't like that, or I don't like that person, or I don't want this. Why have you given me this item? This is terrible." You
Yeah.
know?
And that's the thing is like some of the villagers in the original game are like just straight up jerks. And like
Yeah.
I liked that because it would be like, oh, like I don't like this person, but I like Bob. He's my friend and he's nice. And that's like that's my favorite villager. He's still my favorite villager. And it's because I had like, oh, he was one of the nice ones, or like Roland was a nice one, Ed was nice, Olivia was snooty, but then I got to know her and then we became friends. And it's like I felt like I was getting more out of their personalities when not only were there fewer of them, but they were allowed to be, more different rather than just trying to
Yeah,
like
more like a 3D person rather than a like 2D two-dimensional
yeah, and
character
mhm,
kind of thing.
it very much reminds me of the same thing that I feel like happened with that I always comment about with Pokemon, where it's like the first generation in particular, but like even into the second generation of Pokemon, there's edges to it that are like weird or kind of fucked up or like dark or like not adult, but like very like, whoa, like it's kind of heavy for a kid's game, huh? Like, and I feel like Animal Crossing, the original Animal Crossing, has so much weirdness like that that as it got more popular, it's been sanded down to be like, how do we make this more pleasant and more palatable? And it's just like, I. That's great when it comes to gameplay stuff. I'm down for that. But I feel like when it comes to some of the concessions we've made with like villagers and some of those things, it's like, I don't know,
mhm.
like is having one neighbor who's kind of a dick like really gonna make the game less pleasant, or is it gonna
No, I
like
don't.
it's gonna
I
be
don't think so.
spice,
It's
right?
fun. It's pretty
It's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
flavor. Like
Do you
Yeah.
know what though? Like I kind of do wish for that because I feel like at the moment the only condition I have for someone being on my island is whether I think they're ugly or not, and not whether they're a nice personality or I think they're friendly or anything like that. It
yeah.
really is just like I think you're hideous, Jambet, so get the fuck off my island, and I want someone cute to move into your house. Thank you. And she's finally gone now, so I was very happy about that. I got the message on my. Have you downloaded the new app? Or like updated the Switch Online app, and the like
Yeah.
villager newspaper had a
It's so
villager
good.
newspaper
That's
item
adorable.
about Jambet moving out. It's so funny. There's like a newspaper each week, Pete, and it tells you like the stock prices and everything for like the
Every
turnips.
day.
It's
Every
so good.
day.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh my god, I have to do that. I gotta update that.
It's the cutest thing. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite things that they've done so far in this game. Um, but yeah, I really like your idea, Pete, personally, of them like really uh, making every character different versus because I think the personalities work with the sheer numbers of characters. I think we're up to like over 400 villagers in the game at this point. And so having every character themselves be built up as like a different character, I think that would add so much to it,
Hmm.
especially in I think Pocket Camp is playing with this idea a little bit where they have basically little bios written of every character and they're all very unique, distinct things that's like, oh, this character does this specific thing or is this specific way. And I don't know. I don't know if they can let go of villagers at this point. Just, I mean, I'm sure they know which ones are the most popular, but then they're also, developing the game, so they have their favorites and everything, and they're gonna, if it was up to them to curate, I think we'd get a pretty good mix of what characters would be in it if they were like, let's make cuts, let's make every character distinct. But after seeing how people reacted with like cut special villagers and stuff in this game, and now that they're all back, I'm just like, I don't think they can let go of any villagers at this point, any characters, because like the fan base is just gonna be so upset
We've got a
about it.
national dex problem.
Yeah, it's the national dex problem, and I'm like, I don't know. I've played every game. I'm used to characters disappearing here and there. I still know there's a bunch of characters that aren't in this game, and I think we just gotta like move on,
Yeah.
move on from them, and meet some new friends. I think if they did like complete fresh Gen 5 Pokemon reboot where they're like every single villager is new in this one, not a single old one is in here, they might get away with it, but I still think they'd end up with like, here's some DLC to add them back in.
But like, I feel like that would be a good compromise, right? Like,
Yeah,
if it was
I
like,
think
hey,
that'd be
like we'll
fine.
release new villagers every once in a while and like bring back some old favorites, and it's like that'd be cool. Like, fine. Like, I don't know. I know that like as much as I've loved Animal Crossing since I was a little kid, I'm casual as far as like hardcore Animal Crossing people go. So like I can sit here and be like, yeah, cut 300 of them. Who gives a shit? Like, you know, I don't need 400 villager options. But obviously a lot of people don't feel that way. So
Can you
but
imagine though, Pete, if you had binders full of 400 amiibo cards and you can use any of them?
they're still cool. Like, and there's still ways you could like implement those. Like, like the idea of like, oh, like those characters could come visit you at the Roost or like wherever because they live on the island. They don't live in the new place that the next game is. Like, yeah, like whatever. Like, use them in other ways. You know, like, and then you don't have to have like these long dialogue trees built out for every one of these characters that has a unique personality. You could have like a unique couple moments that you can have with them if you scan the amiibo card, right? Like,
Yeah.
that'd be fine. I mean, I think that would be fine. I think that would be a worthwhile trade, but I'm one person.
Do you know, I really miss, thinking about it now, I really miss the train. Do you remember the train and you used to get on it and you bump into
Yeah.
other villagers on there and you could like interact with these people and you're like, oh, I've never seen you before. You're like totally brand new. It was so exciting to go on there and just see someone new. You don't get that anymore when you just, I guess you get it on the islands. You go to a
Yeah.
mystery island and if you've got a space on your
Yeah.
island, there'll be someone there, but there's no like level of, there's no like transportation to there that you see. So you don't get to just interact on like a plane, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm sure we'll be back to complain more about things that Animal Crossing could do differently next week. But of course, as I said at the top, it is the Wii's 15th birthday. Happy birthday, Nintendo Wii. Big round of applause, everybody.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Very nice.
I
So
should have brought party poppers. Like we should have made a real celebration. Baked cake.
Yeah.
So we'll get everybody pull out their Switch, go to Animal Crossing right now.
Oh yeah, that's true. Way to do it.
So when you are listening to this on the day it drops, we will be just 2 days ahead of the North American release date of the Nintendo Wii, of course, November 19th, 2006. Obviously, I feel like it's not novel to say at this time, but like, back then anyway, right? Like, what a revolutionary moment in video games, right? It was the first console that brought in motion controls. We had the first appearance of the Virtual Console. We had the debut of Mii's. We had a lot of, entries in classic franchises, of course, that were varying degrees of good. We'll talk about that. But, who could forget, right? Like the Wii Sports, those kinds of things. Like the Wii was really a moment. It was a cultural moment for Nintendo. And I feel like the casual market of gamers that exists today that play games on mobile phones and all that kind of stuff, I feel like it really, so much of that goes back to this era of Nintendo and the Wii and the DS,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Wii, I think that was the first console that I feel I was old enough to like kind of follow in a way that I feel I approach video games now, where we're following the news cycles at this point. We're seeing the Nintendo Directs and all that stuff coming out. And I think when the Wii was coming out, I was just like, I was at that age where I was like, I'm on this news. I want to know more
Yes.
about this. I want to learn everything I possibly can. What is the revolution? I want to be part of
Oh my
this.
God, the revolution! I
Yeah.
forgot that was the code name. What such a cool code name to then be like, oh, it's called the Wii. It's the Wii.
It was like announced as that with like and it was in black as well
Yeah.
instead of white. It looked so cool, and then they rebranded it as the Wii, which everyone mocked. I still think that people mock it now because it's the goofiest
I
name for a
still
console.
think the revolution's a better name.
Me
than
too.
Yeah,
Wii.
but I also feel like the Wii being this like super like the whole marketing campaign of like Miyamoto and Iwata just like showing up at people's houses and being like, we would like to play, and like then they're just like playing with these old people and they're at the retirement home, they're playing with the family and all that stuff. That was like such a like fun, like light, family friendly. Like I don't know that I know so many folks who have never bought a video game console before the Wii and never bought one after the Wii that owned a Wii. And I think it was because of the dumbass name and that very like light family friendly marketing campaign they had.
That, and I think it was just so accessible, and you had the world's greatest packing game that you literally opened it up and it was a collection of multiple games, you know. I'm sure there must be people who bought a Wii and then never bought another game, and all they did was play bowling all day long.
That was like a thing in
Wii Sports.
retirement homes.
Yeah. It's wild to me, like just how much the Wii didn't have to do. Like it was just like people got it, you know, right away. I think it was definitely something that, you know, one could argue is still kind of like a gimmick, like motion controls. Did they really stick that much? But I think just for families in general, that whole console, this is the family console, I think. Like I went to people's places that like didn't have any sort of like video game technology whatsoever, and then you're just like, oh, there's the Wii. That the Wii was like the one thing that could break through those like low technology households. And it's amazing that it did that.
I remember my ex-girlfriend's family had a Wii, and they had Wii Sports, and they had the Netflix disc. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the only software on this Wii.
Oh my God.
And one could almost be called hardware because it's a disc.
Yeah, right. It was absolutely wild. But yeah, like that was the power of the Wii. You know, like it like you said, it was immediately understandable and it was insanely accessible, right?
Yeah. You know, the other kind of breakthrough, I think with my family, the DS and the Wii were huge at this point. A ton of people had the DS, a ton of people had the Wii, and I think they were just like hitting that spot where people were like, my family personally was just like, we really like Brain Age and we really like Wii Sports and Wii Fit. Like those were the games that were getting them. And so every pool party at my brother's place was like, here's Wii Fit. Let's see how long you can do this. What's that little ski game that they had? That one was fun. We would play that for hours.
It's so funny. Like I remember Wii Fit being this thing where it was just like, I'm imagining like the boardroom at Nintendo, like, how do we sell video games to suburban moms? Because that's like, I never knew one like kid that played Wii Fit. It was always, oh, we have a Wii and my mom bought Wii Fit, you know? Like,
yeah,
that was always the case.
I liked some of the mini games on Wii Fit. I thought they were cool.
No, like it was fun. But like that was always how it ended up in the house. At least in my limited experience, right?
Well, when I was playing it, I was like 16, I guess, at this point. So I was actually beginning to think about taking care of myself as an adult, moving into that point.
Yeah,
so
my metabolism was still golden then. I was like, I'm gonna live forever.
They had all these ideas for like peripherals and attachments. There was that like blood oxygen meter that they were gonna do that was gonna click onto the end of your finger and then plug into the bottom of the Wii remote that never came out, and it was all this like health stuff that was like a big thing for the Wii era. it was expanding. I think Nintendo's looking at things and expanding beyond games. It's like, what can we do outside of this video game sphere? And maybe they went a little bit too far and now they're narrowing it back in again. But I loved the fact that they experimented a lot. You had the most accessible interface with just a bunch of channels. Do you remember some of the goofiest ones?
I was
like
about
the
to
weather
say,
channel,
yes,
the
thank
voting
you.
channel.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you guys remember those weird fucking apps? Because I remember the weather one. You would open it and it was a world map, and you could just grab it and fling it, and just it would land anywhere in the world and be like, "This is what the weather's like here." And I remember my buddy Eric. It was like a thing. Every time he came and slept over my house, he would be like, "Let's see what the weather's like." And and I'd be like, "Why are you doing this?" And he would just start going and clicking on places. And I remember there was this one. I think it was somewhere in like near like Jamaica and like the Bahamas and that, like in the Gulf area. And I don't remember the like where this town was, but I remember one day he flung it and it ended up there, and it was just like highlighting over this place called Cockburn Town, which at 15 years old, the funniest fucking thing that could have happened, like the funniest thing. And just, it was so weird how many weird little goofy things like that we just had for no reason. It's like, who's using this?
No, I love that stuff. The voting channel, I would do it.
Yes, I did it every day. Like every time.
Yeah, you would
go
in. You go in and like you'd see a little me and you'd like run across to like the area of where you want to vote. It was so good, and I have no idea why it was that good, but you would do it, and it was also really the first time I remember having a browser on my TV, and so you could just go to any website like YouTube, and you could just watch YouTube on your TV, or you could go to like. I remember this dodgy website called TV Links, and we would go there, and it would just be like a list of links to TV shows that we shouldn't be watching because they're illegal, and we would just like watch stuff, and it was great. You could just like play it after like millions of adverts had showed up. It was awesome. I loved the goofy little apps that they added in, and then obviously they expanded upon that with WiiWare. And the Virtual Console, which really took it to like new heights.
Yeah. How did you both get your Wiis? Because I remember the Wii was like specifically, it's the PS5 of that era where you could not find it anywhere. I think I got one eventually because my brother, like his neighbor, had bought like 3 or so of them, and my brother was like, "Hey, my brothers want a Wii. Can I go buy? Can I buy this off you?" And so that's how we got ours.
Damn,
But
shout out to your
it
brother.
was
That's
like
awesome.
nowhere to find in stores, you know?
Yeah, I think I told this story very recently on Flip Screen Games because we were talking about the PS5 scarcity and everything, and I was making the point how I think it's pretty exaggerated. Like people act like this is the first time it's ever happened, and the Wii, I think it was a full year after it came. No, you know what it was? Okay. It had come out in 2006, and I guess it would be the summer of 2007 was when I could finally get one. And I had called, and I kid you not, I had a list on my like favorites on my old flip phone, and it was like Walmart, Kmart, Target, Toys R Us, both GameStops that were in my town, whatever. And I called every single one twice a day. And I called him in the morning and I called him in the evening. You guys got any Wiis? No? Okay. Wiis? No? Okay. And finally, I remember there was one day I get Target and they're like, "Yeah, we got one." And I was like, "Can you put it aside for me?" And he goes, "No." And I was like, "My man, please. I will get my mom to drive over right now." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "If you can get here in the next 30 minutes, I'll keep it for you." And I was like, "Okay." And I ran down there. I was like, "Ma, we gotta go. Right now, we gotta go. Drop whatever you're doing." And we get there, and I get it. And I was like, I could not believe I had it in my hands,
Yeah, you could have just told the guy, "Look, man, I call every day, twice a day.
It's like,
These
dude,
he
calls
probably
will
knew.
continue if I don't get my hands on this."
He's like, "This fucking kid."
He's like, "Oh, not
Are
again."
you not tired of hearing me?
Oh my god.
I guess my parents were really good at getting consoles, or like really lucky, because my brother got one for Christmas on the year the Wii came out, and it came out in December in in Europe and
Your
I think
dad's a
everywhere else in the
gamer.
world.
You know, I feel like he's dialed in on that shit, right? Like he was
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
like, they want this. They want the Wii. They want this new Nintendo console. Let's get this. Hook it up.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really into Nintendo at the time, because we had
PlayStation kid.
we had the Xbox 360, and I was like big into that at that time, and I was like, why do I want
360
the
was huge.
why do I want the
Everybody
Wii?
wanted that.
Yeah.
Who wants the Wii? You know?
I had the Elite.
Um,
I got that. I remember it was like a very like I was like, oh, this is like a status symbol. I got the good Xbox.
Yeah,
That's pretty
you
cool.
did the black one, right?
Yeah. It was like, oh
you could
yeah,
tell
it's
the
very
difference
cool.
just by the color.
Very big deal.
But yeah, we got one year, the first Christmas. I think did Mario Kart come out as a launch title? Because I remember getting Mario Kart like
so.
very soon after, because we played so much of that. And to this
Think-
day, Coconut Mall is my favorite Mario Kart course of all time, and it needs to be added to the next Mario Kart game.
It came
It
out
might have
later.
been-
It was 2008.
Yeah, I was gonna
Oh,
say I think
okay.
it was earlier because it was like another one of those cross-launch things with Twilight Princess, where that came out on
Yes,
GameCube.
yeah, we
and
got
Wii,
Twilight
right?
Princess, yeah, with the weird mirrored version from
Yeah,
the
because
GameCube.
most
It's, like,
people are
completely
right-handed,
opposite.
so they swapped it.
That was
yeah.
like the first. That was one of the first like very nerdy things I remember being like angry about. I was like, you can't just Link's
Well, you want-
left-handed.
Were you on bulletin boards, like irate about it?
I'm like on the IGN boards, like this is a travesty. No, I was the one fucking dorky ass. Like of all my friends played video games, but I was like, I had an EGM subscription and like read IGN, and I was like, guys, it's supposed to be left-handed. This is a big deal. And they're just like, new
Did you go out
Zelda,
of your
cool.
way? Did you go out of your way and play the GameCube version?
I did.
With like a game. Oh,
It's because I didn't. It wasn't even because of that. It was because I didn't want to play it with motion controls. I
okay.
wasn't like
That's
down
fair.
on motion
Makes sense.
controls, but I was like, I don't like the idea of playing a traditional game with the nunchuck and the Wiimote, and I stand by
Yeah.
that. It's awful.
You know, I agree with you. So, and do you remember the re-release of GoldenEye that they did? That was the time I got the golden, like, I don't know if I think it was called the classic controller, and it
Yeah,
plugged into
yeah.
the bottom of a Wii remote rather than wirelessly connecting to the console itself. So you just had this like remote like attachment that was just like hanging somewhere, and I guess you just put that on your lap while you played with the actual controller. It was the goofiest setup
It was so
ever, but
weird.
it worked.
Because the Wii had GameCube inputs. It's like, why don't you just make new controllers with the same butt?
Just
like,
plug a GameCube and yeah.
Just make more Wavebirds. Just sell
Yeah.
some more.
well, and that's the thing is like, there were a lot of games you could use the GameCube controller on. Like, I remember like I had Mario Party 2 from the Virtual Console, and we always just plugged in GameCube controllers because nobody wanted
Smash
to fucking
Brawl?
use that bullshit.
You could always use GameCube controllers there.
Yes, you could.
Yeah. The Wii Mote Nunchuck combo was one that and just that controller in general, it was probably like the biggest barrier to entry for some games for me. Specifically, not because like I'm against motion controls, but just because like some of them I just didn't feel it was necessary slash it didn't feel optimized for it. But I will say
Yeah.
the one game where I think the Wii nunchuck combo, the one game that it works, surprisingly enough, Xenoblade Chronicles. I think that game controlled really well with that control scheme because there was like, I replayed it on the 3DS. It looks terrible. Don't do it. but that game specifically, like there was so much traversal with the worlds being so big that control scheme made it really convenient to run while like going through menu things. It was just a weird thing where it worked out really well, where you can keep
Because you could
moving.
move while
Yeah.
moving the stick.
Mm.
Yeah. It was just like all of the controls worked really well in it, and maybe that's the same with the version on Switch, but I haven't bought that game a third time to find out.
Mhm.
Not yet.
Do you know what? I feel like it would have been the case with Breath of the Wild on the Wii U as well if they hadn't have nerfed that version with the menu on the gamepad. It would have been so good to just be able to touch all the things I want to add to the recipe and then go.
Yeah, there's some control schemes that I'm like, man, this could have worked really well, but like a lot of them is just like this feels unnecessary. Like,
Yeah, and that was always the thing for me was so often it felt like a gimmick or like a reason to shove something in, right? Rather than like this is a natural extension of what you're doing. And that was always what bothered me was I'm not against motion controls. I'm not against the gimmick, but can Mario just be normal? Can Zelda just be normal? Like I don't,
yeah,
you know what I mean? I don't need this for a 40-hour game. Like it's fun for like
I mean, Galaxy though, fucking great the way that controls, and you wave to pick up the gems, and
yeah,
you
but
move.
it still
Like,
never
that was
felt
that was
good
great.
on the Wiimote nunchuck. Like I don't mind the like, oh, you can flick your wrist and do certain like, but like that works in Odyssey, right? But that works with a regular controller, you know, and that it feels fine. It's the like I just. I don't know. It was something always about it felt awkward to me. And I feel like even the Joy-Cons are better because they're the same. So it still feels like there's consistency rather than, oh, I'm holding a TV remote in one hand and like a compass in the other. Like, what the fuck am I doing?
And they were phenomenally inaccurate until they brought out the Motion Plus. Like they just
Oh
did
my
not
God.
do what
That
they
sensor
advertised
bar would always be
whatsoever.
falling down and, you know,
Yeah.
get knocked behind your TV or something. And it's like a whole pain.
yeah. But then there were those games where it worked so well.
Yeah.
The Pikmin 1 and 2
Oh, that was
versions.
perfect.
Perfect game for that. And then just WarioWare Smooth Moves too. The way they played with the controller in that one is just like, yes, this is what the Wii was built to do, and you're doing it perfectly. Just keep putting things out like that. But I don't know. It was few and far between, I think.
I think most of the first party titles did a good job when it was designed around it. I think Twilight Princess probably is the only exception for me because I feel like that they shoehorned that in at the last minute.
Yeah.
Whereas like the third party stuff,
Nice.
like
Chuy's
I
holding up the
remember
black Wiimote nunchuck combo.
Yeah, I think this nunchuck is also like a third party
a
fake
dodgy
one
one.
that I
Yeah,
bought.
I've got a load of those. Like, they're difficult to find these days.
Mhm.
But I remember like Call of Duty would make a separate version of the game just for the Wii. It was like a
Yep.
completely different story, a completely different game, because it had to work with the motion controls and stuff, and it was often an inferior game because of it, just because they couldn't use the natural control
And that's
scheme
the-
that
that's
was
the-
used on everything else.
The funny thing is, like, there, like, so many trends were set with the Wii, right? Where, like, the GameCube wasn't the most powerful of that generation, but there was enough parity where it wasn't, like, a super wide gap, whereas, like, the difference between the Wii and what the PS3 or, you know, even the 360 could do was so wide. And that was when you started to see third-party support drop off. That we had a huge problem with, like, shovelware and just garbage games because they needed stuff to sell people.
Not to mention those plastic attachments. Like, oh, you want your Wii remote to look like a golf club? Get this piece of plastic and stick it on the end. I
Yeah.
hate to see what
Yeah.
landfills look like because of that.
And just so many things like that, you know, like obviously the family friendly thing was like very much you know, a big moment and a big boon for them, but it also was when they started to alienate the core audience, and it was like sometimes it was a tough time to be a Nintendo fan, you know? It was like I remember there was a huge swath, like a number of years where my Wii was just a Smash machine. Like me and my friends played a lot of Smash. Like I was in if you're a longtime listener, you know this. I was in a ska band with 7 other people. And, like, that would be what we would do on break during practice, or we would hang out for hours after practice, and other friends would come, or, like, you know, people's partners would show up, and it would be, like, 15 people stuffed in my room just sitting there playing Smash for as long as we could. And
Melee or Brawl?
what's that?
Melee or Brawl?
Brawl. We're
Okay.
slipping. We're using final smashes. Items were on. It was all whole. You know, all bets are off. We were not trying to be competitive. We were trying to have some chaotic fun, and like that was great. But that was the only game I played on it that wasn't, you know, maybe a retro thing or something like that. I grabbed on the Virtual Console for several years. You know, and like
Yeah.
there was a drought.
Yeah, ours was very much like Mario Kart and Mario Party. and that was like it. Or GameCube games, like we would play all the old GameCube.
Yeah, like Mario Party
games and
2
stuff.
is probably the second most played game. The Virtual Console port is the second most played game on my Wii, I would bet.
Yeah, but that Virtual Console really was like setting the way for emulation, like mainstream emulation that is paid for. We forget that this really, alongside I guess the Xbox Live Arcade did similar stuff, but this was like the first time you could buy like emulated versions of games just on a downloadable like piecemeal basis. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's honestly one of the most innovative things Nintendo ever did. Like when it comes to online services, and then they totally just got rid of it.
Yeah, I really wish I had more disposable income at that time, because there were those I downloaded the demos for them, but there were those like Final Fantasy tower defense games that were on there, like My Time as what was it called?
I have
I
no
vaguely
idea.
remember that.
Shoot.
There was
was
like
one that was like you were a villain, and then the others where you were like not the villain and like protecting your castle. And I don't remember the names of them, but I always wished I had bought those, because I was like, man, this demo is pretty fun. I don't have any money. Better keep studying, I guess.
I remember thinking it was really cool too, where like they kind of like set that stage for the like retro revival with like Mega Man 9 and 10. Like those were originally on the Wii.
And New Super Mario Brothers, right? That was the revival of that.
But I mean, like Mega Man 9, like was, you got to think, in 2008, that was an insane thing. That like Mega Man, they came back and were like, we're making 2 games in the NES style. Like that's it. And like,
I wonder if that's because they saw how popular it was from the Virtual Console. It was just like,
probably.
Oh, these are selling like hotcakes. Let's just make some more.
Like I really think the Virtual Console had a huge part of the whole retro revival thing. You know, it was definitely a part of it.
Yeah,
what were some of your like?
I found them real quick. My Life is King, and then My Life is a Dark Lord, and they were all kind of like Crystal Chronicles based. I think it was like specifically a Crystal Chronicles thing. Yeah.
I always remember one of the games that stands out for me that's kind of, I guess, a forgotten history is Steven Spielberg's Boom Blocks. And
I do remember that.
It's just left to die on the Wii. And I don't think he's done a game since.
Nope.
Man, poor Steven.
Poor Steven. All right, so we had a couple people write in about the Wii. I don't think we'll have time to get to too many of them, but I do want to get to this one question we got from one up Mango, who wrote in and said, the Wii is probably my favorite Nintendo console because of the amount of nostalgia I have for it. I had so much fun battling it out in Wii Sports Bowling, Mario Kart, and Super Smash Bros. With my family. The sports they offered in Wii Sports Resort were just the best. My brother-in-law lent us a copy of Mario Party 8, which was my gateway to Mario Party, and is still probably my favorite Mario Party to this day. And I remember being proud of achieving the pro status in Wii Sports. My nostalgia for the Wii stems from the fact that I really genuinely enjoyed the Wii Sports games, and I miss the local multiplayer experience it helped me have, as I haven't gotten much chance to recently play locally with anyone having moved to a different country. My question for you guys would be, what's a favorite moment / memory you have of a Wii Sports game? So I have a particularly funny one. At least I think it's super funny. So you know how there was that feature on the Wii, the Me thing where you could like search other people's Miis and download them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you could even do that. What we used to do when we were kids was we would go on Google, and there were like websites dedicated.
Maybe that's what it was.
And we would spend literally hours making celebrities or public figures or like people that looked like this just so they would show up in the crowd.
Yeah, and same deal. Like I remember I had Zoidberg, I had like a Spider-Man, I had like all these crazy ones that other people had made. So maybe it was from a website or something like that. But I remember they were not ones that we had made that were like these crazy cool ones. And one of the ones we found was one of Hitler, and his name was just Bad Man. And I remember we downloaded it and we're like, oh, it'll be so funny. You fight him in boxing or whatever, just beat up Hitler. That's hilarious. And I remember we put on a random thing to pick which me we were going to fight. And my friend Eric, who I had mentioned, who was the one who did the weather thing, him and his twin brother Adam, their dad, they had made their dad. And their dad was like this very like old, stern, quiet dad type figure, and the random me that it picked was him and Hitler, and he just beat the shit out of Hitler. And I just remember thinking that was so funny at the time, you know. And again, we're 15, 16 stupid teenagers, but I just remember thinking that shit was so funny.
I love it. Yeah, for me, I don't know. I will say, I think I guess the one I look back and appreciate the most as far as games go, Wii is what got me into Fire Emblem. Funny enough, like my
Really?
first Fire Emblem game was Radiant Dawn, which was on the Wii, and yeah, I think I've never looked back since then. I'm just a huge Fire Emblem fan now, and
Wow.
all those tactics RPGs, I'm just like, yep, let me get more of them. I don't mind if you make more.
Yeah. I mean, not specifically Wii Sports, but like the Wii in general really, aside from the DS, the Wii got me like big time into Nintendo. Prior to this, I really was like from a PlayStation, Xbox household. And being able to experience stuff like Mario Kart really just made me appreciate the fact that, yeah, not every game needs to look super realistic or have guns or be like mature or whatever to be enjoyable. You can just have a hell of a lot of fun.
So funny to
with-
think that you used
with
to be
goofy
that
stuff.
kind of gamer. Like
It was, yeah,
like
it really
a pro
was, yeah.
shooter guy. Like
No, I used to be big into stuff like Call of Duty and things like that, and now it's just like, ugh, no thanks. Don't want another one of those. So it's amazing how you can change over the years.
for sure. So we had a couple other folks write in. We do definitely gotta wrap this one, but we had one good story that I think I want to close this one out on. So if we didn't get to your comment, then thank you for writing in. We appreciate you. This one comes from Ben S. Smith, one of our Patreon supporters, who wrote in and said, "I studied graphic design for GSCs, and in year 11, part of the class grading was to create a shop point of sale display. My best friend and I decided to do one for the Nintendo Wii and a game. I chose Zelda Twilight Princess, and he chose Smash. I can't believe it's been 15 years already. I can still picture the huge amount of hype we had around the Wii's release. Going to each other's houses to watch the newest information or video release on YouTube at the time, texting each other with any news we had heard or read. It was such a great time of my life and one that I hold dear to my heart. To this day, we play Switch games online once a year together. I remember how hard it was to secure a Wii, and my parents telling me I may be disappointed on Christmas Day back in 2006 if they weren't able to get one. Luckily, they pulled through, and I got one for Christmas that year with Twilight Princess. I remember playing Wii Sports on Christmas Day with my siblings, taking it in turns on Wii Bowling, as at the time, we had just the one Wii remote. That must have been tough to be like, we can't all play together, just take turns. That's restraint. I also remember being so overwhelmed with how cool the Virtual Console was. Being able to play so many classics, trying to pick that one game I could afford with my money, with the job I had as a pot washer at my local pub. Great memories, like I said. One I hold very dear to my heart. I do feel I slowly grew out of gaming, and by the end of the Wii's life, I wasn't too much into it as I had been when it first came out. Luckily, I'm very much back into gaming with the Switch. Nintendo fanboy at heart always. An incredible console, not to mention how cool it was to play GameCube games on it. A truly amazing backwards compatible device. I could go on for my love for the Wii, but I shall leave it at that. Thanks guys for making me feel old. Wow, 15 years, that's half my life ago now. Keep up the great work, longtime listener, Ben." I just thought that was a nice story. Thanks for writing in, Ben.
Yeah, that's
Ben,
awesome.
it's absolutely wild though. Ben, we must be similar ages. I mean, I guess we are. It's like almost half your life.
Yeah, we got to be around the
Like
same
almost
age.
half our life.
That is
I
half my
did
life.
I did graphic design as a GCSE. I also had to do a point of sale display. I ended up doing, mine was not anything to do with video games. I did like a music download machine thing that you would like plug shit into. But yeah, I did that same
Napster.
course.
There you go.
It was basically Napster, yeah, physical version of Napster.
Small world. Well, thanks again for everybody who wrote in. We really appreciate you. This was a fun topic. I figured we'd have some meat on the bone, but like we got to some memories I like had forgotten until we started talking about it. It's definitely a time I look back on very nostalgically. So congratulations to the Wii. You're still number one, but we'll see for how much longer, baby. Switch is coming for you.
It is.
So, yeah, thanks again for everybody for writing in, for being a part of the show. Remember, if you want to write in, there's a bunch of ways you can do that. Head over to flipscreen.games. You can get links to our Twitter, our Discord, our email address. Write in for our talking point, just like these fine folks did. And you might hear your thoughts read on the air, or one of your fun little stories about your favorite video game consoles. Look at that. Wouldn't that be nice? And you know what? I'm going to issue the challenge again. If you've never written in, if you've been a long-time listener, write in. I'll read your whole little diatribe. Let's go. Give me them. Give me your deepest, darkest questions, all right? We need them. So thank you again, and be a part of the show however you can. Of course, the best way to show your support, head over to the Patreon, get some extra content from us, get some perks, get your name read on the air as a Patreon producer. It is the best way to go above and beyond if you want to show your support, and of course, we greatly appreciate it. So yeah, until next week, I've been Pete, for Chuy and Steve. We're Nintendo Noise. See you next week, baby.
Bye.